734. So here we have the count of the tribes. They're counting the tribes here, and then it says right about 4/7 of the way down the page. What do you call it? For pasuk in pasuk chaf aleph. Pasuk chaf base. Okay, so it's the tribe. It's counting the tribes. You always wonder what's the significance of numbers. So it says about 10 lines from the bottom. Umate Binyamin. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Umate Binyamin, the tribe of Binyamin. V'nosi livdei Binyamin Avidan ben Gidoni, the prince of the tribe, the leader of the tribe, the man named Avidan ben Gidoni. And then it says like this: Utzva'ov Kudayam, the number of their count. Chamisha ushloshim elef, 35,000 verbamos, 35,400. So in the tribe of Binyamin, there are 35,400. What do you call it? Now, the Ramban, Nachmanides, he says that on, you guys see, you have the place over there. Did everybody see where we are? We're in 734, about 10, 11 lines to the bottom. So Nachmanides says that there are 10 psukim, 10 verses, that if a person says them on Motzei Shabbos, when Shabbos ends, there are 10 verses that are supposed to bring blessing. The Ramban was a great Kabbalist, and he had a certain tradition about certain verses that you're supposed to say. One of the 10 verses that the Ramban mentions, that you say, you can take this chair. The Ramban mentions just don't sit at this. Better not sit at this table. Sit right over here. The Ramban says that one of the 10 verses is this one. Utzvaof kudeyam chamisha shloshim elef verabamos, 35,400 for the tribe of Binyamin. Now, what in the world can be it's one thing if you tell me, well, the Jewish people got the Torah, or say something good happened. Why would a number of the people in a tribe, why would that be one of the 10 verses which the Ramban says is a good thing to recite every Motzei Shabbos to bring blessing into the home? So one of the commentaries explains, there's an idea that a Jew is supposed to make 100 blessings a day. The halacha says it's like 100 brachas a day. If you daven 3 times a day, so you daven Shemona Esrei is 57 right there. It's like a triple 19 on a dartboard, right? If you say Shemona Esrei, says 57 brachas right there, then you get the 14 brachas in the morning, so you're already up to 71, to 71, and then you bench a couple of times, then you eat, and you say afterwards, and you get to, in the course of the day, it's generally not too difficult to get to 100 brachas. I actually know 2 people that I've met in my life. 2 people where if any point of the day, you say, hi, what are you up to? A guy says 66. Right? They're actually keeping track of how many brachas. Like other people keep track of money. This guy knows. I remember there was money. there was a basketball player, Rick Barry. I don't know if any of you heard of him, but if you didn't, you should have. But Rick Barry once said that in the course of a game, he always knew how many points he has scored. And he knows how many points he's scored. I don't know why, but he did. He did. I did also when I played. But I wasn't. He made more money. But no, it wasn't 2. It was more than 2, Jared. Thing. But the what do you go? When I was hot, it was 3. But the what do you go? So Rick Barry was what he called. He knew how many points. So he knows how many brachas. I know people who actually know how many brachas they're holding at the end. In the course of a day. Now, you make 100 brachas a day. The idea of making 100 brachas a day is that it keeps us in constant touch with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All day long, you are in focus. And the same thing, reason we daven 3 times a day. Why does a Jew daven 3 times a day? 3 times a day you check in. 3 times a day. In the davening, right in the morning when you get up, and then at the height of the day, right in the middle of your busy, you could be in the middle of a business day, you stop and you daven mincha. Right? Sometimes it's at lunchtime, so a little later afternoon. There's these constant checks 3 times a day. You're constantly checking. My brother-in-law was once working in the United States. He was an accountant in a department store. So I once had, he was living in, my wife's from Columbus, Ohio. It's not a very Jewish town. And unlike Chicago, which is heavy Jewish population, Columbus is very, very more America. They actually test products in America. It's kind of lower middle class, upper lower class, and when they want to market a product and see how it's going to go in America, Columbus, Ohio is one of the places where they test it. Because it's like very, very America, very cross-section of America. So, but it's not a very big Jewish presence. So my brother-in-law was working in his department store, and I had to go speak to him. So I walked in, and a young lady behind the counter is obviously not Jewish. I said to her, excuse me, do you know where Mr. Cohn is? And she says to me, he's in Minyan. Now, I know she couldn't have said what I just thought she said. And so I said to her, where is this here Minyan? She goes, it's in the second office on the right in the back area. I was bursting with curiosity. She couldn't. So I go over there and I open the door, and sure enough, there are 10 men got together for mincha in the middle of the day. Now my brother-in-law had told her, if anybody calls, say I'm in Minyan. She thinks Minyan is the name of an amusement park. You know, she had no idea what Minyan was. But Jews, no matter what you're doing, you stop and you daven in the middle of the day. Morning, you daven. We lose about an hour a day. Do you realize the average person, when you go to work in the morning, you got to, get yourself out of bed at 7:45, get into your car, take a donut and a shaver, and you go to work, you shave and eat your breakfast in your car. We got to get up. We got to get up, and you got to go to shul, you got to get your tefillin, and then you got to come back and you got to eat breakfast, then you got to bench. After your break, there's a lot of time. This takes up a lot of time. So why are we doing it? And the answer is that the whole point of davening is in order to check in all day, check in with Hashem all day long, so we don't get caught up in our own selves. And then you have the idea of a bracha. You make a bracha 100 times a day. Now, let me ask you a question. What does the words Baruch Atah Hashem mean? Again, we've spoken about this in the past, but it's important to review this. What does Baruch Atah Hashem mean? So, people say, well, blessed art thou, O Lord. That's how that's a general pathetic translation in most siddurim. Blessed art thou, O Lord. Now, if a person says that, imagine after 120 years, a person comes up for the heavenly judgment, and Hashem says, "Well, did you daven? Oh yeah, did you make brachas? Yeah, I made brachas. What does blessed art? What does Baruch Atah Hashem mean? Well, blessed art thou, O Lord. Why were you blessing me? I created you. I don't need your blessing. Oh, gee, I never thought about that. Now if you think about how many brachas you make a day. 100 brachas a day, right? 700 brachas a week. That's 2,800 brachas a month, right? That's 30,000. Round off 30,000 brachas a year. That means if a guy started making brachas at his bar mitzvah and he lives to 75, he's made over 2.5 million brachas in his lifetime. He has said the words Baruch Atah Hashem over 2.5 million times. Then he comes up after 120 years and says, "Oh, I never thought about what I was saying." And that's pretty embarrassing. Besides being a waste of time. So what Baruch Atah Hashem really means is a declaration. We are not giving God a blessing. He doesn't need our blessing. We are making a declaration. You are blessed, meaning you are the source of all blessing. So if you say that 100 times a day, every time you pick up an apple, you say, "You are the source of all blessing, God. Thank you for the apple. You are the source of all blessing, God. Thank you for allowing my bodily functions to work properly when a person comes out of the bathroom. You are the source of all blessing, God. Thank you for giving me this food." So then your relationship with God is going to be a completely different relationship because you've made that declaration 100 times a day, and you've made it every day of your life. That's the idea of making 100 blessings. That's why imagine going home and you say to your mom, "Mom, you are the source of my joy. Thank you for supper. You are the source of my joy. Thanks for doing the towels. You are the source of my joy." Can you imagine a relationship with your mother? It's going to change. All of a sudden you appreciate mom. And all of a sudden, it's like this kid sitting with his father at the table looking at the parents' wedding albums. He says, "Hey, Dad," he's looking through it. He's a 9-year-old kid. He's looking at the parents' wedding album. He says, "Hey, Pop, is this the day Mom came to work for us?" Well, that's not quite how it's supposed to be. Now imagine you're married. You have a wife, and you say that to your wife 100 times a day. "You are the source of my joy. Thank you for keeping me company. You are the source of my joy. Thank you for making me meals. You are the source of my joy. Thank you for not using the credit card." Can you imagine that after what it got? You say that 100 times a day, your appreciation relationship is going to be a different relationship. So here, if you say it 100 times a day, and you do it in the course of a year, how many days are in the Jewish year? 354. So if you do it 100 brachas, 354 days a year, what's the number you're going to come out to? 35,400. So the tribe of Binyamin, look what they've got. Utzva o ufgodehem chamisha ushloshim elef v'arba'am. They're 35,400. So says the Ramban. This is one of the verses we say on a Saturday night. That is, the Ramban says that could bring blessing into the home. Well, now it's obvious why, because this is what we do in the course of a year. More than that, whose portion was the Beis Hamikdash, the temple? Whose portion was it built in? Built the portion of Binyamin. The temple is the source of all blessing for the Jewish people. So the tribe of Binyamin is always that tribe that we associate with Bracha. Okay, now take a look at Perek. Take a look at Perek Gimel, Pasuk Gimel, page 736. 736. Pick it up from the beginning of Perek Gimel. It's about 10 lines from the top. Ve'ela told us, if you find it, please show the person next to you. Ve'ela told us Aaron and Moshe. These are the offspring of Aaron and Moshe. B'yom diber Hashem el Moshe b'Har Sinai. The day that Hashem spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai. Ve'ela shmos b'nei Aaron ha-bechor. These are names. Nadav v'aviu Elazar v'isamar. These are the names. The firstborn is Nadav, and Aviu, Elazar, and Isamar. Now, first of all, it says these are the children of Moshe and Aaron, yet they're not Moshe's children, they're Aaron's children. It only lists, it doesn't even bother to list Moshe's children, it only lists Aaron's children. So why are they called Moshe's children if it's Aaron, Moshe's brother, what do you call it? Aaron? There are chairs over here if you want. There are chairs over here. Itamar, there's a seat over here if you want. So the what do you call it? You can sit over here also. I'll pull this back. You can sit over here. So we just read Itamar in the Torah. Hey, it must be what do you call it? Divinely inspired.
You called out to me. I can't.
Yeah, how do you like that? Don't tell anybody. I've been known to do these sort of things, but I don't want to. I charge for it. What do you call it? So these are the sons. So why does it say that they're the sons of Moshe? So Rashi says that somebody who has taught, Moshe taught them Torah. Somebody who has taught other people Torah as if he has born them, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu is the teacher of Aaron. Elazar is their teacher, but Aaron is the biological father. Now, then it repeats again after. Now, this is puzzling because it says in Pasuk Beis, "Ve'elish shmos b'nei Aaron habechor." These are their names, and then again the next pasuk says, "Elish shmos b'nei Aaron hakohanim hameshuchim." These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed kohanim asher milei yadam lechahe. So why is it that it repeats in two pasukim? Well, first one says these are their names, tells us the names. It says these are their names, the kohanim who were anointed to serve. They are the kohanim. Anybody here a kohen, by the way? Any kohanim here? Wow. You Mordechai, you're a kohen? I didn't know that. Oh, they're edging in on my truma. Well, you gotta look out. You gotta. What do you call it? You gotta go find your own turf, man. This is my place. What do you call it? So any Levium? Anybody Levi? Oh, you can wash my hands. Anybody else? Okay, so these are the Kohen. Why does it mention their names twice? Why does it mention their names twice? Good question, yeah? So one of the commentators, Rav Hirsch points out, you find in other religions, interestingly enough, what was the job of the Kohanim? What did the Kohanim do? They're the religious leaders of the people. And you find in other religions, one specifically especially, that the religious leaders get a new name. Right? The Pope takes a new name. I never understood that. I was always curious. I was curious about that. When somebody becomes the Pope, so whatever his name is, then he gets a different name, right? He's either John Paul, right? John Paul, somewhere Ringo. They different names that they have. And you always wonder, why is it that the Pope? Where did the Pope? Why are they changing his name? So, one of the ideas here, if you know anything about Catholicism, one of the ideas is that there's something called papal infallacy, right? The Pope cannot be wrong. The Pope cannot be wrong. No matter what the Pope has, he gets the divine inspiration. If the Pope would change laws, then that becomes the halacha by them. That's the way it works. When he gets a new name represents that you're a completely new essence. Remember we spoke about names. The name being the root of your neshama is indicated in your name. A name is your essence. And when a person, even we have a tradition, if somebody is not well, they add a name. They add a name. Somebody's not, they add a name, and you daven for somebody who's got a new name, because the idea of adding a name is that, well, it could be that there's a decree, a divine decree that Ruvain has to die. But if his name is now Ruvain Chaim, well, that's a different person. It's a different essence. It doesn't, also there are other things. He also needs good medical treatment. But the name can change a person's fate. So that religion believes that he's become a new essence. He's become a new essence, and therefore they change his name. They give him a different name. The Torah is emphasizing, and that name goes along with the papal infallacy. Not infallacy, that's slip of the tongue. Papal infallibility. He's infallible, that's the word. He can't make any mistakes. We never said that. These are the names of the sons of Aaron. We mentioned their names, and then the Torah emphasized that these are their names. They're not changed. They're human beings. These are human beings with all of the potential flaws of human beings. Can a great rabbi make a mistake? Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, we never said no. We never said no. The chances are less than other people, but we never said that there's infallibility in Torah. And as a matter of fact, every single name that you pick out in the Chumash, just about, remember we spoke about this once? Just to pick out any name from the Chumash, of the famous people in the Chumash, and the Torah itself points out their flaws. Moshe Rabbeinu got angry. Aaron was involved with the golden calf. Miriam spoke lashon hara. Adam Arishon sinned. Noach, what do you call it, got drunk. Every single name of all the greatest people in history, and the Torah points out, listen, they're human. Nobody's them. We're not malachim. We're not angels, and we're not meant to be. Now, that's first of all. Second of all, it then says, Vayamas Nadav va'aviu lifnei Hashem, ba'akrivam eish zor lifnei Hashem. Nadav and Avihu died. Now, do you see anything a bit peculiar about that puzzle, those words? Vayamas Nadav va'aviu lifnei Hashem. Remember the story? They brought the incense into the holy of holies, which they weren't meant to bring in, and a fire came out. They went into their nostrils and they died. Right? They died from bringing an unsolicited offering into the Holy of Holies. But there's something a little bit peculiar about the structure of that pasuk. Vayamas nadav va'avihu. What's that?
Singular.
Excellent. Vayamas is singular. Vayamas nadav va'avihu. Vayamas nadav va'avihu is in the singular. It should have said vayamusu nadav va'avihu. Why is it in the singular? So if you look in the sources, the sources say, well, what was it? The Gemara mentions several flaws that Nadav and Avihu had. There's several things that they did that caused them to die. One of which was they never got married. They felt that there was nobody quite at their level to marry them. Nadav and Avihu never got married. And when a person gets married, he's considered half a person. So Nadav and Avihu together are one. Each one alone is a half. Therefore, it's in the singular. Vayamas Nadav Avihu. And sometimes people say when they're ready to get married, people often say, I'm looking for the other half. Right? You ever heard that expression? You're looking for there's only one catch, gentlemen. When you want to go looking for the other half, first you have to find the first half. And sometimes people forget that. You got to find the first half. I'm looking for the other half. Yeah. Well, the other half or the other half a million? Yeah. I'm looking for the other half. Well, you got to find the first half. That means that a person has to have a certain direction, focus, and goal in life. Because if a person doesn't have the focus, direction, and goal, say you get married to somebody because you're some sort of artist, superficial attraction, which wears off very, very quickly, then you're just left with the person themselves who might not be quite as wonderful as you thought. And therefore the Torah attitude is that when you have a direction and a goal in life, you are finding a partner who will help you and her to achieve similar goals. There obviously has to be chemistry and it has to be some sort of obviously chemistry and attraction and money, but there has to be money is the greatest chemistry. They actually somebody once said if you marry a girl for her bank account, you will still lose interest. But there obviously has to be the natural chemistry, obviously male female, but there has to be a similar goal. You want to go find the other half, so you find the first half. You have to find the first half. I actually heard a story once about, I'll get to one second. I heard a story adding a name. This guy comes to a rabbi, and he says to the rabbi, he's tired of his wife, wants to get divorced. There's no freshness in the marriage. He's always grumpy and grouchy, and he's had about enough. So the rabbi says, look, it's a pretty serious step to take. If it has to be done, it has to be done. But we have a tradition that sometimes if you add a name, it could change things. So let's do that. What's your wife's name? He says Rachel. He says Rachel. Let's add the name Leah and see what happens in a couple of weeks. And if that doesn't change things, so then we'll go to the next step. But let's see what happens. So he goes, oh, the guy's intrigued. This sounds really interesting. He says, yeah, Rachel Leah. Yeah, I think okay. So the rabbi says, there's only one thing. When you change somebody's name, you got to get used to it. I made a bracha before. You got to get used to it. So I want you to do this. You're going to have to practice. Now, every morning, I want you to say, good morning, Rachel Leah. Good morning, Rachel Leah. Okay? And then after you eat lunch every day, I want you to say, thank you for the delicious lunch, Rachel Leah. Okay. And then when you go to sleep at night, I want to say, thank you for everything you've done for me today, Rachel Leah. And I just practice that, and let's see what happens after 2 weeks. Guy comes back 2 weeks later and says, Rabbi, it's amazing. That name change is amazing. She's always in a good mood. She's always smiling. So sure. You treat your wife like a boor, right? You don't appreciate her, so she's going to be miserable. All of a sudden, he's saying, thank you, please, good morning, good night. All of a sudden, it worked. The name change worked. Yes, guy. So at the end of the day, what were we going to ask? Your name is?
Todd.
Todd, yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious about the two things. You said two halves.
Yeah.
Why here it says one person? It uses like two people as one example. That's a million times in the Torah. It doesn't use like multiple.
Good question. Good question. The truth is because we have a source that says they did not get married. They
Specifically, that's
specifically, yeah, and therefore, since they didn't get, one of the commentaries points out that you have a curiosity, or that using a singular, using a what's it called, singular versus plural. Is there another word for yad lashon yachid in English? Singular terminology for a plural for two people.
But why here out of any other?
Only because it mentions them. It mentions their death over here. You know why other places? That's a good question. That I don't have an answer for. But here they point out that it could be that the Torah decided to emphasize it here. I don't know. It's a good question. At the end of the day, they're considered a half. Each one's considered a half, and a person is not complete until they're married. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says one who is without a wife is without Torah, without blessing. There's a whole list of things a person is missing till he's married. One of the most curious statements, the Gemara says, one who is without a wife is without shalom, without peace. Now that's really intriguing, right? Because I had, when I was in yeshiva, I had a roommate. We were for about a year and a half, and we never, ever, ever had even something any remotely close to any sort of close to disagreement. I was married for about 20 minutes. And I was already in trouble, right? Because the photographer was taking pictures, and he was draying around, and I was having, I'd had about enough of it, and I started making faces as I was going like this and pointing. I actually got a picture of my mother-in-law has a picture of me pointing. I was laughing, he was laughing, and there's this lady standing and dressed in white, standing next to me, and I'm laughing, and he's laughing, and all of a sudden she's smiling, and all of a sudden I hear her go, "Could you please cut that out?" And I'm like, ooh. She speaks. Whoa! I've been making decisions on my own for the last, and all of a sudden I go, whoa, you're on a leash, and there you go. So what does that mean? And I can tell you that when you're married, you're going to have plenty of disagreements. One is without, a wife is without. I had plenty of shalom before I got married. I didn't have to work on shalom bayis till I got married. So what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? The answer is that peace is not the absence of fighting. Israel and Egypt are at peace. Right? That just means they agreed not to blow each other up. That's all. That's what a peace is. When you're in peace, shalom is a result of active effort. That's what shalom is. Passive, withdrawing is not shalom. Withdrawing just means you're a hermit. I'm at peace with the world. Sure, I closed myself off in a cage, and I live somewhere in moved off the coast of Nova Scotia, and and nobody ever sees me. And then you're just a hermit. That's not peace. That's not peace. That's just the absence of fighting. Peace is shalom is something that is actively worked on when those two halves are working on it. Okay, now take a look a little further at. We don't have a whole lot of time today, but I want to get on to a couple of points here. So first of all, by the way, one of the commentaries say they died. I forgot to mention they died because if you look, the Torah says back in that verse Yudalid, it says Vayamas nadav avi lifnei Hashem ba'akrivam eish zora lifnei Hashem. They brought a foreign fire. The commentaries say therefore, what did they bring? They brought Ketoris, which is the highest level of service. And they brought it into the Holy Holies. How foreign could that be? The answer is that we're not looking for new ideas and new innovations. We've been doing this for about 3,000 years. There might be changes and adjustments based on the Torah itself. There might be certain things where the halacha might have been forgotten, and then we have a way of reproducing the halacha based on how the Torah says to reproduce it. We're not looking for innovations. We're not looking for any sort of new ideas. The same ideas, they apply. All the ideas apply. All the halachas apply. Well, the Eish Zara is to try to introduce foreign concepts into the Torah. We didn't invite it in. We're doing well the way we do it, and we're happy the way we do it, and whether we're happy or not is immaterial because this is the way God said to do it. And therefore, part of their flaw is coming up with an idea on their own. And therefore, the Torah is saying, the Torah calls that an Eish Zara. Okay, now I want to get to one point over here. Take a look at Perek Gimel Pasuk Tesvav. Sorry, I lied. Perek Gimel Pasuk Yud Beis. 738. I want to show you something very curious here. First, I'm going to tell you a, what do you call it? I'll tell you the question first. The question is, the Torah says, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor, v'ani hine lakachti es haLevim mitoch bnei Yisrael. Everybody see that? It's 5 lines, 6 lines from the top on page 738. V'ani hine lakachti es haLevim mitoch bnei Yisrael. I've taken the Levim out from the Bnei Yisrael. Tachas kol bechor peter rechem ibnei Yisrael. The Levim replace the firstborns. The firstborns were meant to be the ones who served in the Beis HaMikdash. The firstborns messed up at the sin of the golden calf, and the Levim were then taken as a replacement. V'hayu li Levim. I'm taking the Levim for myself. Now, if you look at Rashi over here, on Pasuk Yud Beis, it's the right column of Rashi, 5 lines from the top. So the Torah says, Ani hine lakachti. I've taken the Levim. Rashi says, Ve'ani mehechan zachisi behem. I, God, what gave me the right, so to speak? It's obviously symbolic, obviously allegorical. What gave me the right to take the Levium? Mitoch b'nei Yisrael. I took them from among the Jewish people. Sheyu Yisrael sochin osan l'sherus shali. That the Jewish people would use them for my service. Al yedeha b'choros zachisi b'hem. I have taken the right, I have the right to the Levium because of the firstborns. Ulakachtim tmurasam. I took them in exchange. Why? Lefisha haisa avoda babechoros. The service was done with the firstborns. Ukshechatu be'egel niflu. When they sinned with the golden calf, they became disqualified. Ve'aleviim shelo avdu avodas kochavim nivcharu tachtehem. The Leviim who did not serve idols, they were chosen instead of the Bechors. So Rashi gives us an explanation here based on the Medrash of why the Leviim were chosen. Now, the only different problem here is that the Leviim were already chosen a few psukim earlier. And Pasuk Ches, V'shabras kol klei avoel moed, right? Take the Leviim, the Pasuk Hey and Vav, the Leviim should stand before Aaron and they're going to do the service. And all of a sudden, 6 or 7 psukim later, the Torah gives you a reason why. The Torah tells you why. So, you're very curious. Why does it wait? What's the delay in the Torah to tell you why the Leviim are taken? So, I want to tell you an interesting medrash, but you have to listen to this. You have to get the start to finish. You have to stay with the start to finish. There's a medrash, one of the midrashic sources, that says the following. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, went up to get the Torah. When he went up to get the Torah, God said to him, any questions? So Moshe Rabbeinu said, yes, I'd like to know where your justice is in the world. Why is it we find that the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper? How does that work? So God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, look, I'm going to give you a little insight here. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Don't think if you understand this that you'll understand everything, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. At least you have an insight into how my justice works in the world. So God shows Moshe Rabbeinu a vision. And in this vision, Moshe Rabbeinu sees a soldier on a horse. It's a very hot day. Do you remember this? Any of you remember this medrash? God sees Moshe Rabbeinu sees a medrash. A soldier is riding on a horse on a very hot day. And he goes over to a water hole. And he bends down at the water hole to take a drink. And as he's drinking, he's got a money pouch in his pocket, stuffed with gold coins. And this money pouch falls out right at the water hole. The soldier doesn't notice. He gets on his horse and he rides away. A short time later, a 12-year-old boy comes by, goes over to take a drink, and he notices this pouch. He opens up the pouch, got stuffed with gold coins. He takes the pouch, he scampers off happily. A short time later, a little old man comes by. And he sits down by the water hole, has something to eat, some dried bread crusts, and he takes a nap. He goes to sleep. Okay, the soldier's riding his horse, and he touches his, that panicky feeling when you can't find your wallet, where could it be? So he figures the only place it could be, must have fallen out at the water hole. He puts the horse in reverse, goes back to the water hole, and he gets to the water hole. He sees this little old man there. He sees the little old man. He says, okay, this guy, he kicks the old man, wakes him up. The old man's taking a nap. He says, listen, nobody's been here since you. You found my money. Let me have the money. The old man said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, give me the money or I'm going to kill you. I haven't got a lot of time. He says, I haven't got any. I don't know what you're talking about. Takes out his sword, kills the old man, and searches his pockets and doesn't find the money. Gets on his horse and he rides away. The vision fades, and God says to Moshe, now you understand how I world. It's perfect justice in my world. He says, no. No. So God says, okay, I'll show you another vision. Let's see if this helps you. He shows him a vision of a forest. A thick forest. In the middle of the forest, there's a clearing. The father is walking with his 2-year-old toddler son through the forest. And there's a soldier sitting on a horse, and he's got a clear view of this clearing in the forest. He's watching the father walking with his son. From the other side of the forest, this bandit suddenly springs out, and he grabs the father. They start wrestling around on the ground. And this bandit overpowers the father, pulls out a dagger, and he stabs him to death. He rifles through his pockets, and he finds a pouch stuffed with gold coins. He grabs these coins, and he starts running away. He's in such a hurry to get away, he carelessly drops the pouch. The soldier's been watching the whole scene unfold, and he comes riding in, and he picks up the pouch, and he rides off. God says to Moshe, now it's clear. Vision fades. Now you see my justice? No. God says, okay, I'm going to explain it to you, but just realize this is only one of billions and billions of events, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. But you'll understand that my justice is perfectly measured out. The vision that I showed you at the water hole actually took place, and the vision I showed you at the forest actually took place. Except the vision at the water hole took place 10 years after the second vision, which was at the forest. The soldier who lost the money in the water pouch at the water hole, 10 years earlier, saw the pouch fall from a bandit who was running away. He rode in and he took it in the forest. It took 10 years, and 10 years later he lost it at the water hole. The 12-year-old boy who found it at the water hole, 10 years earlier, was a 2-year-old toddler whose father was killed. He should have inherited the money then. It took 10 years, and eventually he got the money at the water hole. The little old man who was brutally murdered at the water hole, 10 years earlier, was a young bandit. He killed the father. It took 10 years, and he himself was killed the same way he killed somebody else. And who was it who killed him? The very soldier who should have intervened in the forest 10 years earlier. It took him 10 years, and he caught him at the water hole, and he killed him then. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, everything is worked out. Everything is planned out to the nth degree. A human being doesn't always see it. Commentators say that's exactly what's going on over here. God says, here's the reason I chose them. 6 verses earlier, or whatever the amount of time was, a person takes and says, why them? Why are you choosing them? Where's the logic here? The Torah is teaching you, God knows what he's doing. We don't always see the results. The other person doesn't always see why something happened, but eventually it catches up to you. Eventually in life, if you're good to other people, one way or another, you're going to get good things. Well, it doesn't mean it's always going to be good. It doesn't mean you're never going to be stuck in traffic. And it doesn't ever mean the person's never going to have aggravation. Everybody has aggravation. But what goes around comes around, and it's run with precision. And God has a plan. And just because we don't understand doesn't mean. And then God says to you a few words, like, oh, you know why I took them? Because I took them in place of the Bechors, because they didn't worship idols. Oh. Did you ever see like one of these movies? You ever see one of these movies, like one of these mystery intrigue movies? And the very last scene of the movie, everything. You mean he was a big guy? Also, everything makes sense. Then you see a couple of guys in the parking lot. There's always one guy like, oh, really? He was a good guy all along? Oh, I didn't know. Oh. Like somebody explaining it. I was that guy. I was always the guy. I was clueless. A friend of mine was always like, no, she was a spy. Oh, she was? Oh, I thought she was a librarian. And you always get that. You always go, It starts the last page of the mystery novel. It's the last page of the mystery novel. That's what life is, and that's what the Torah is talking about. There's an extension over here, which is always the question of parents explaining things to their children. I imagine any of you, most of you, at some point in life, your father probably said to you, when you said why, your father probably said, because I said so. Right? I imagine you were subject to that at some point, the same way that you were subject to your father saying to you, oh, you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. Right? You ever hear that music? Yeah. And doesn't anyone around here turn off lights? Am I the only one who turns off lights? Yeah. Oh, fathers all went to the same school. It's all the same. That's all on the syllabus. So the question is always, should you explain to your children or not? Should you explain to your children or not? My own personal policy is I feel that you should explain to children, not necessarily right then, and that they should understand that the fact that I'm explaining it doesn't mean it's negotiable. I've made a decision. I make the decisions here. You want to know why I don't want you to go traveling with your friends to the Syrian border to do some alligator wrestling and bungee jumping? So I will tell you why. Because the Syrian border is dangerous, bungee jumping is dangerous, alligator wrestling is dangerous, and those friends of yours are most dangerous of all. That's why you can't go to the Syrian border with the rest of your 7-year-old friends, right? So no, you're not going to be doing that this week. No, not this week, and no, you're not buying a motorcycle. No. Wait till you're 11, right? You're not. So I feel that kids should understand. You don't, and there are times where, as a father, you should say to your son, I've made a decision, and I'd rather not explain it to you. The idea of because I said so, which does communicate that the father is the authority figure. The problem with that is that sometimes fathers don't have a real good answer. And sometimes father has a fallback position because the kid has really come up with a logical argument. The father said, because I said so, because the father really knows he's wrong. And therefore, and as a father, by the way, you should be willing to admit if you were wrong. If you made a mistake, you should be willing to admit you made a mistake. That's also important for kids to hear. Okay. Now, one more point. If you take a look at Pasuk 7, what page is it? Pasuk Tesvav, last point. So the Torah says like this: "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'idar Sinai lemor." It's on 738, 6 lines from the bottom. Pekodes b'nei Levi levesavosam. Now you're going to count the Levim. After we counted the Jewish people, lemishbechosam kol zachar miben chodesh v'mala tifkedem. Count them from a month old. From 1 month on, you count the Levim. Now, if you remember, how old were the rest of the Jewish people when they counted them? They were 20, and the Levim they're counting for 30 days. From 30 days on, they're counting the Levim. Why is that? I mean, it's quite a discrepancy. And you're counting everybody else from 20 years. So there are different answers are given. One of the answers is that what kind of environment are these children raised in, and what kind of environment are the other children raised in? The Levium were completely immersed in the spiritual realm. They're immersed in Torah. They were the Torah teachers. They create a certain type of home environment where, in those of you who have ever learned Gemara, there's a concept called a Hazaka. A Hazaka means that we could rely on a certain premise. There's a certain premise that we could rely on. For example, if I point to you and I say, that's my shirt. That's my shirt. I say, that's my, what is that thing called? The thing you got right on the table. The thermos. That's my thermos. Right? What's your name?
Kyle.
Kyle. What would your response be?
Is it?
Is it yours?
I'm saying like, you would ask like.
If I said that, is that your thermos? That's your thermos, yes. Right? And if I said to you, hey, that's my thermos, what would your response? Your response wouldn't be, is it? What would your response be? No, it isn't. Right? It would be, right? No, it isn't. Okay? Now, what would happen if we had a dispute? We go to Beis Din. We go to court. What do you think would happen, though?
Yeah.
Who has to prove it?
You.
Why?
You're the one making the claim.
I'm the one making, why? He's making a claim also, isn't he? You're right. You're both right.
Defending a claim.
He's defending it. What puts him on defense?
It's already in his possession.
Correct. The fact that he's got a chazaka, he's got the established status quo. There's an established status quo. You want to prove it. But possession is 9/10 of cocaine, right? I mean 9/10 of the law. Sorry, possession is 9/10 of the law. So what do you call? You've got the possession. That's a status quo. In life, there's a certain status quo. If a man comes into a shul and he claims that he's an observant Jew, he's got a chazaka. You can count him in a minyan. You count him as a minyan. He's got an established status quo. I tell you, my neighborhood, I live in a religious neighborhood. There's a couple living together across the street from me. Right in the middle of a Haredi stone-throwing neighborhood, there's a couple, what do you call, a man and a woman living together. Could you believe it? Could you believe it?
What's the problem?
What's the problem? Living together?
Oh, they're not married.
Oh, are they married? I don't know. They she covers her hair. He's got a beard and wears a black hat and jacket and davens in our shul. They have 11 kids. What do you call it? But I wasn't at their wedding. I don't know that they're married. Nobody invited me. I don't know what they served. What's it? Yeah. The answer is, there's an established status quo. There's that. You don't know that I'm a rabbi. right? You know, who said I'm me? Who said I'm the same guy who was here yesterday? There's a what do you call it? There's an established, it's called a Hazaka. When you raise your children in a certain environment, we could rely on them turning out as good, loyal, faithful Jews. The Levium created that environment. Because they were involved in that. The rest of the Jewish people, they're involved in other things. At 20 years old, we'll see how the kids turned out. Because there are too many other outside factors, number one. It's even more than that. You want your kids to be loyal to Torah. What it's going to take is what the Levium did. What happened at the golden calf? They were given a command. The Levium have to be the executioners of those who worship idols. Even if it was family members. And remember, a Levi could have a brother-in-law who's not a Levi. He could have a father-in-law who's not a Levi. No one from the tribe of Levi worshipped idols. Wow. But they had family members that did, they had to execute them. When you execute a family member, all right, a father-in-law, maybe not, but if you execute a family member, that means that nothing overrides your loyalty to God, not even the family relationship. When your kids see your devotion to God and to Torah is such that you're not willing to compromise, that's the best way to ensure that your kids are going to follow the right path. If a person is willing to compromise, the kids learn from their parents. So I heard about one guy says to his daughter's about 7 years old. He says, how come you used to make brachas out loud. How come you're making brachas quietly now? She goes, because now I'm big, now I'm like mommy and daddy. You don't want to hear that from your kids. Okay? So if you serve, I don't say, by the way, making brachas loud, just make sure. Don't interrupt people while they're talking to make loud brachas. Sometimes people want to make sure that everybody around them sees how righteous they are. To be polite is also part of Judaism. To be considerate is part of Judaism. But what you are is a what do you call it? So if a person wants to have success with their children, if you show that you're willing to spend more money on, how much kosher food costs more than non-kosher food? You know how much kosher meat costs? It was about 8 times the price. And a kid, and your parents are spending money on kosher food, or the lights go off in the house on a Shabbos, the air conditioning goes off, and you're inconvenienced, and you're not willing to turn on the light because of Shabbos. Well, that's a lesson that the kids learn. If you're willing to invest, then you can be sure that your kids are going to follow that path. A person who takes it is flippant about his observant. So you expect the kids to be flippant as well. All right, see you guys on Sunday.